Hello, today I want to look at a specific pattern that I saw while modeling a map. Um, so let's show it. The pattern will be in orange. This one. Okay, so there's context. What I want to talk about here is certain design elements that I think could be improved. I don't want to change the flow at all. It's a nice thing right here. But one thing that we can do is right. So if we look at this now, we can see that it's not very symmetrical. It might be better to make it so that these are just like a copy-paste kind of thing. So if we want to do like this, and Control D. So this would be the general idea that you might have, and this looks a little bit nicer. Of course, the distance spacing is not ideal because we changed that, but we'll fix that. So right now we're using a distance spacing of about 1.6, so I'm just going to standardize it to 1.6. Right. And this two object right here is very flexible. Like we could probably put this here, here. It doesn't really matter. The focus right now is going to be to start working on this, and then 2 can kind of just fill in wherever we need it to be. Okay. So remember, let's take a look at the original. I want to make sure that I retain this kind of flow. Not that that's necessarily the most optimal flow, just because I want to retain whatever it is. So I'll just put this circle here, move it away for a little while, and now I know where to put this pattern back. And remember, I'm rotating this by 94 degrees. How did I get to 94? Well, the 90 part was just, I guess I could have gone the other way, but you just keep rotating until you get to this to be straight, basically. And then you can see the symmetry a lot easier, and you can start working with the flip commands to help you out. Okay. So, sure. So the goal is to have these two work together. And there's a few ways we could do that. We could do, like I said, this 2 slider is a little bit flexible, so I'm going to do this for now and come back to it. So one thing we could do is blanket with a 1.6 emphasis. That doesn't look really good with the 1.6, so if we were going to use this technique, we'd have to probably shift this down to 1.2, or, you know, some other one. Maybe something like this. And do a little bit of rotation. So that way, so right now this kind of blankets this slider in, and we can tell for sure if we do Control G on this. So our previous is 1.4, so I'm going to do Control G, and we'd like this to be 1.4, and we see that I'm a little off the mark. So what I'm going to need to do is either move this up, but then that gets us into like DS issues here, so I'm just going to keep rotating more until I find the right level I want. Right, so this would be blanketed technically. Doesn't have a very strong overlap, and let's just check to see where we're at here. So this would kind of be uneven DS. We want this to kind of be 1.4 into the next object. So we're going to rotate this back a little bit. And then check the DS here. This is pretty close. It's probably okay to leave it like this, but we'll see. And then so if we wanted to, we could put this back, put the original thing here. We'll keep the same distance of 1.4. Rotate this back by 94. Oops. Make sure we go the other way. Put it back to where this circle was. So now we see that this is a little bit more structured. It kind of has a little nicer design. This overlap here, well, normally this overlap would kind of be a little odd. Because it's symmetrical, it kind of works a little bit better. So, not necessarily the, super prettiest object, but at least this has a little bit nicer design than when we started. The problem is that if we wanted to continue this flow, it'd be a little repetitive. For instance, we'll get to actually this point pretty quickly, but what we would do is we would have, you know, this kind of circle thing going here, but then in order to continue the this little flow, we'd have to do is copy here, and then you're just kind of, this repetition might not be the best mapping technique to use in this situation. So, and of course, I would be more better about this. I would make a blanket here with 1.4 spacing, but I just want to, you know, show what the idea is. So this is an option. I don't recommend this option specifically because of this flow right here. I'd like to emphasize this with a different flow or mapping technique. So I'm going to do something a little bit different. The goal here, so I'm just undoing with Control Z. And actually there's a limit to how much you can undo, so I might not be able to go back to the very original pattern, but it looks like I was. Good. Okay, so on the one hand, what we could do is we could set up, the previous iteration was where we redid this, and then made this structure work with what we did here. But let's do the opposite way. Let's, oh crap, what did I do? Oh my gosh, what did I do? Oh my bad. Let's do the opposite. Let's start with this structure, and then work our way backwards. Let's make it symmetrical along here, and so that way we get to keep this little flow. It might end up being a little too similar again. Like this, the goal for this one is to make it so that, you know, we have something along the lines of this. So that way this is a little bit more contrasting of a flow, but this will still be symmetrical. So that's the end product in mind. So in order to get there, we need to know how much we need to rotate this by. So I'm going to start all over again, and by that I mean, gosh, why did I do okay. Also, we could, if we wanted to, you know, just move this around. This could probably be flexible in some way. But for right now, I'll just leave it here. So one option is the very simple option is to go like this, and then keep the distance to whatever you wanted. I think we were originally using 1.6, so let's try to use that spacing. We'll move this down, basically. So the next is going to be 1.6-ish, which is, I'm looking at the top right, by the way, the numbers at the top right. So something like this. This would mean we'd have to use a straight slider, essentially. And that might not necessarily be nice design. I don't like horizontal stuff. That's mostly just me being personal about it, but if you include a slight angle of like 10 degrees or whatever, you have a little bit nicer, just a little less formulaic. So one thing we could do is rotate this by 10 degrees. Well, hold on. We rotate this by 10 degrees. Let's say more like 5 degrees since the last one was 4 degrees. This will be a little more even. And then we'll rotate this by 10 degrees, which is twice as much as 5 because that's what you need to do when you're doing this kind of symmetry. Probably missed this up. So the goal is we're going to rotate this. We'll make a copy just to make sure we keep this flow exactly the way we want it to, and again, just similar to like what we did last time. So I'm going to rotate this by 5 degrees, and then I'm going to rotate it by 90 just because I like the vertical one a little bit better. Obviously you don't need to do this little 90-degree rotation, but it might be easier to work with. So, this is much better. Okay, so this is the slider we like, so we'll just do this. And we might also want to move this down a little bit. So if you can get them to be halfway, so observe this. The next into this object is 1.24, and if we Control G this so that it's up here, our next is 1.28. So if we wanted to, we can be kind of particular and get this kind of in the middle, and then the overlap looks a little bit nicer. So right now we can see that the next is 1.26 for each of these. So my head sounding's weird here, but whatever. This is a little odd because of this distance, which is always going to be bigger. It's not always going to be bigger than that. So if we wanted to, we could find a way to like go like this if we wanted to, but I don't like that. I kind of want to just ignore the DS here for right now and work with it kind of this way. Anyway, shoot. Yeah, that's better. But maybe we want this ds of 1.5 to be a little bit extended, so oh, that's not cool. So maybe we will, here we go. We'll move this a little bit. So this will keep this. The editor is not being very nice to me. See, when I do this, it moves it like slightly around. So I think this was the original, and then I'll move it another 4. So this keeps the symmetry of it, and now the distance spacing is a little bit more appropriate. So now we can rotate this by the 5 degrees that we mentioned earlier, and then the 90 degrees using the control arrow hotkey. It's up here somewhere. These are, if you ever get confused where my hotkeys are or my shortcuts are, you need to look at this. Again, this hit sounds off because I did this. There we go. Oh, and then this distance works out pretty nicely. I'm so smart. Where's my guy? I had a guy right here. I had a thingy. I must have control Z'd it. I messed up. Well, we'll just pretend that we know what we're doing. Oh, wait, no, we have to put it here. Ah, I'm perfect. There we go. So now to keep the DS, we'd like it to be 1.64, so we just, normally if it was at a nice number, we would just hold the DS hotkey. I'm using Alt to toggle. So, we would put it there and then get it to 1.6 for each of them, but we need to be a little bit more specific. So I'll click this box and move it around. Right, so now this is completely even spacing if we wanted that aspect of it. And it flows a little bit. We'll delete the extraneous slider there. So yeah, now this kind of captures the same thing that zeroallies was going for originally. Where this flow isn't the exact same, or this flow isn't the same exact as this flow. So that's a good aspect. And now it's a little bit more structured because of the symmetry right here, and because of the distance spacing here. And in fact, if we did it right, this might form a nice triangle. But yeah, that's something interesting. One thing I was considering was the DS between these two objects. So this DS is 1.8, which is not the 1.64. So there might be a way to construct it so that, you know, you rotate this out a little bit by like 5 or whatever, and then now you have this like 1 point. You make this distance the same, or you make something the same, so that way you can get. You make this distance. Here we go. So you would make this distance between these guys 1.8, and then if you get these distance to be 1.8, then this is a nice triangle here when you go back to here, and your distance is even. So I guess I should, if I was good, I would just do the example. So the goal is to make so now this forms a triangle. So this is 1.8, this is 1.8, this is 1.8. Yes. And then you would find a way, you kind of do the same thing we did before, so that the distance between these guys, keeping the symmetry here, is also 1.8. And then you have this really nice triangle flow like that. Yeah, I should probably show that. The downside of that is this. So the reason we picked the 1.64 DS was to go with this overlap here. Like this tiny overlap doesn't really look all that nice, whereas a stronger overlap like this looked a little bit better, which is why I chose the 1.64, and why ultimately I think the pattern that I had was the pattern that I had, which I'll get back to in just a second here. This is where this pattern, even though it doesn't have this nice triangle structure, it's probably better just because of the overlap issue. It's a little bit nicer. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe the overlap doesn't matter. But it's your choice, I guess. I've at least shown you some mapping techniques for that. And yeah, should be pretty good.